This is the All-Star Networking Show with your host, Cathy Paper.
Well, welcome to the All-Star Networking Show. I am so excited to have a conversation today with Karen. We are going to cover quite a few different things and connecting ourselves virtually from Minnesota to New Jersey. And I'd love, Karen, if you just introduce yourself to the listeners, and then we'll spend a few minutes just chatting about all the things you've got going on.
Hey, hi, I'm Karen Olson, and I'm glad to be here with you today, Cathy. I started a national nonprofit to help homeless families called Family Promise, and I've written a book meant for more, following your heart and finding your purpose. So I'd love to talk about those two things and anything else you want to talk about, Cathy.
Yes, wonderful. Well, you know me. Well, we just have the listeners are, don't get the pleasure of seeing the things that I see. I see these paintings behind you. So not only are you an author, but you're a painter. But let's start with the organization that you've built and helping these families. Is where did that idea come from? And share with listeners a little bit of what you've done.
Yeah, well, actually, I started the organization. What propelled me forward to do that was pain from my childhood. I lost my mother suddenly and tragically when I was just 12. That left a hole in my heart. And I knew what hurt was, and I didn't want anyone else to hurt. And so I set about becoming a nurse when I graduated from high school. That was going to be my way of helping people. But my stepmother said, "You'll never be a nurse. You don't have what it takes. You don't have the grades." And she persuaded my father not to send me to nursing school. But when one door closes, another one opens. At the time, I thought, oh, my dream is totally shattered. But I continued to volunteer as a teen. And I studied business administration, and I became a marketing manager for the Warner Lambert Company in New Jersey. And I developed sweepstakes and couponing events for Schick razors and Listermann mouthwash, which was a far cry from helping people who were hurting.
Right. But I do love a good sweepstakes. So
That's fun. Not many winners, but the whole idea is fun. But then one day, fate intervened. I was going into Manhattan for a meeting, and I saw a homeless woman in front of me outside of Grand Central Station. I had seen her before. She was elderly, probably in her 70s. She was frail, and she sat on a crate and she always looked down like she was so depressed. And, I passed by homeless people very quickly, as I think many New Yorkers do with people who commute. You avert your eyes. You don't want to see. But this time I didn't. And on impulse, I ran across the street and I bought her a ham and cheese sandwich and an orange juice. And when I came back, I showed her the bag, and she looked up and said, "Thank you, God bless you. I haven't eaten since yesterday." And so we talked. She took my hand. She raised her hand up. She took my hand. And at that moment, I feel like I crossed an invisible line. I learned her name. Her name was Millie. And we talked. And I told her a little bit about my life as she asked. And she told me about hers. She had been married. She was someone's mother. She was a wife. And one thing after another, some mental illness, and then losing her husband. She ended up on the street. So that really opened my eyes to homeless people. They're people who are hurting, and we should care and do something about it. So I told my two boys about Millie. They were then 10 and 12. And so Doug said, "Mom, let's make sandwiches and find more people like Millie." So we made 25 sandwiches, and we rollerbladed around Central Park and gave sandwiches to anyone who we thought was in need. But that we exhausted our supply too quickly. So next time we went in, we made 75 sandwiches. And we learned that many people experiencing homelessness congregate in Port Authority. So we delivered the sandwiches to people in Port Authority. But the sandwiches were more than nutrition. It was a way to say we care. And we entered into conversation with folks. With some, we sat down and talked for a while. And we learned their names, you know. They were John and Abe and Lucille and Arthur. Lucille lived under the escalator in Port Authority, and she had a little cat in a bag, and she was lonely and sad. She was always dressed up to the hilt as if she was ready to go out in the town, you know, vestiges of her past. So we did that for a couple of years, about every other Sunday. The boys wouldn't always go in with me. Sometimes the neighborhood friends went in with me. And then I decided I would invite the ones we knew well, and that was about 8 of them, back to my house for Thanksgiving dinner. And so I went in about 3 weeks before Thanksgiving and bought bus tickets and put them in invitations and hand them out to our friends. And they took the bus from New York to Summit, and we picked them up in a couple of cars. And I guess it's a strange thing to do, but for me, I was just really following my heart, and I had gotten to know people, and it seemed like the thing to do. But I recognize some people might think I was crazy.
So wait, I have a question though, Karen, because I'm so struck by you took the 25 you bought her this Millie the sandwich, and then you came back and said, okay, I'm gonna go you told your son, and then your son said, let's make more sandwiches, Mom.
Yes,
And
exactly.
25 turned into 75.
Right.
And this is like 1985 or 1990, or when you said rollerblades, I was curious,
Yeah. 1981, 82.
81, 82. Okay. And so
Yeah.
you invite your friends,
Mhm.
your new friends that you've met, the description of the woman who's fallen on hard times and, again, trying
Mhm.
to survive. And then you have everybody over.
Mhm.
Just, amazing. I love that you said follow your heart too, because I
Yeah.
think so much of philanthropy, what you said is we get engaged in conversation. So
Mhm.
what a powerful act.
Yeah. Well, it seemed like the right thing to do, but I realized I was living and it was like a split screen because, well, I thought that was the right thing to do. I'm sure neighbors and other people thought it was really weird, or especially that I brought my kids into New York City and did that. But I didn't. I had crossed this line where I felt, people are hurting and I'm going to respond.
Right.
So it was, a very nice Thanksgiving dinner. Well, the one thing I should say is I'm not a very good cook at all. And the second, yeah. And the second thing is I've never ever cooked a Thanksgiving dinner in my whole life, but that didn't deter me. And some neighbors came to my rescue. Bill Harrison, who was a trader on Wall Street, made the turkey and was delicious. And other neighbors made the side dishes. So we all sat around and enjoyed Thanksgiving, and
Oh,
people reminisced about Thanksgiving's past, and it was lovely. The only thing that was sad is when we had to bring them back to the bus station, and they got on the bus, and when seeing them getting on the bus, even to go back to New York, that's when I really, you know, got a lump in my throat. Made me sad to have to send them back, but they appreciated the time with us. And then when we went back into New York on Sundays, they kept talking about Thanksgiving. So we did it again following Thanksgiving. And at Christmas time, I have what I call 3 Christmases. My former husband would come at Christmas morning, and we'd open presents, and the boys would get lots of presents. And then we'd be on my way to my father's house in Darien, Connecticut, for a second Christmas. But in between, what felt like the real Christmas was we would stop at Port Authority, and we had bought like gloves and wallets and underwear and shirts and wrapped them and gave them out to people in Port Authority. And, we'd say Merry Christmas. They would say Merry Christmas and hugs. And it just seemed like the natural thing to do. And it was really the best Christmas. So all that got me involved in helping homeless people. But what I didn't know was there were many homeless families that you don't see, because they're not on the street. They're in shelters if they can find shelters, but typically they're living in their cars or they're doubled or tripled up with family or friends. And so I began volunteering in my own county of Union, and that's where I met families who had been living in their cars, had no place to go. Sometimes they were in shelters. Sometimes a friend would take them in for a while, but I thought to myself, does the religious community know? I was not a member of any church or religious organization, but I know all faiths have a mandate to serve and to make a difference. So I planned a conference on family homelessness, and I invited the religious community to an all-day conference. And I thought 100 looked like 100 were going to attend, but 200 people showed up from some suburban communities. So that proved to me that compassion was alive and well, and people did care.
And Karen, let me ask a question about that. From the one ham sandwich to a conference of 200 people, how did you know who to call, or in the religious community, how did you know who to invite? How did you build that network around your idea?
Yeah. Well, at first I thought I would call on churches and synagogues in Elizabeth, which is an urban area. And so I did that. But the pastors said, look, we've been sheltering homeless people in our congregations for years. In fact, many people in our congregation are at risk of homelessness or are homeless. So they didn't want to participate. So I went to the suburban communities, and they were very eager to get involved. So they were the ones that came to the conference.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then so now you have 200 people at this conference, and your heart is now starting to pump, and this is the amazing part of you we can see coming into fruition.
Right, but basically, I'm shy, and so I didn't take a leadership role. I had a minister, a rabbi, and a priest facilitate the conference, and it was good. Bob Hayes, who was the founder of the National Coalition for the Homeless, spoke. Wendy, a woman who became homeless and lost a son because she had to walk during the day and couldn't stay at the shelter. So all of the workshops and speakers really informed people. And all I said was at the end was, if we stay together and work together, people like Wendy will have a home. And I said, how many of you are willing to come back to, will come to Christchurch and meet and see together what we can do? And virtually every hand went up. So, I didn't want to just have a nice conference and people leave. Isn't that interesting? I had planned all along that I would gather some people to work, to get together to create some kind of shelter. So I just went on instinct, really, on the networking part. You know, well, okay, I want to help homeless families. Who has a mission to help the religious community? Okay, to participate, what they need, So, and I think what resonated with the religious community was they really wanted to live out their faith and make a difference. We're tired of just, having their faith and having it end there on Sunday or Saturday. So we got together and we began looking for a building. And, we looked at the armory, we looked at the old schoolhouse. We couldn't find a building. And not one religious congregation could be a full-time shelter.
Right.
So I said to people, what if we work together? Maybe we can do together what any one religious congregation cannot do alone. So the plan was to have 12 congregations who would take turns on a weekly rotational basis, sheltering families. And that was something they could do. But during the day, they couldn't keep the families. So we found a day center in Elizabeth where families were often looking for jobs and also social services. So the Y in Elizabeth became our day center. And so at 5 o'clock at night, her van driver would pick up the families at the day center and bring them to the host congregation. So, but what came out of that? Well, during the first year, our success rate in placing families in housing was 70%. And that came from, it's amazing because
I was going to say, for the listeners who don't know about the homeless journey, those statistics are so amazing because even today, I I don't know the exact statistics, but I just think that's a phenomenal program to help somebody land in their own home.
Yeah, well, most shelters don't even count success in finding housing. They count bed nights.
Right.
But we had Family Promise, getting to know families. We wanted to do more and more. So we had a good case management program. But the volunteers were not content just coming in and preparing a meal or staying overnight. They wanted to do more. So some employed people in their own companies. They helped them find housing. They helped write resumes. They donated cars. All this wonderful compassion yielded many other ways to help. And that was it. We really built a community. And so with the success of the program, other counties approached me, Essex County and Morris County. So I worked with them for them to start their Family Promise program. And then it spread. Philadelphia contacted me, Columbus, Ohio. And I saw that compassion has no geographical boundaries, that people want to make a difference. And so I launched a national organization, hired some staff, developed a manual on how to develop a Family Promise program. And so today we have close to 200 affiliates, and we have involved more than 1 million volunteers, and a high success rate, which is now 81% of the families find housing. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So then I'm going to actually challenge you a little bit first of all, congratulations. And what a gift to everybody that's ever, struggled or experienced homelessness, or the family. But you said something about, you're like, well, I'm really sort of shy. And the part of networking that I might just ask you the question, because most people listening, to a show on networking, want to find their style of connecting with people.
Uh-huh.
And they think they have to be sort of the extrovert and running around the party or shaking hands with everybody. Is there are you shy or are you more just figuring out how to connect people? Like you have a secret sauce.
Yeah,
So,
well, I guess the secret sauce is passion. Yeah, because I would not be that person at the party going around shaking people's hands and networking. That's not
right.
me. But I was so passionate about helping people that propelled me forward to make a difference. So the passion, overcame my shyness. I wanted to help homeless families. I saw how they were in need. And so there was no time to be shy. I didn't even think about that. I just did it. And then I had a plan how I was going to do it. And third thing is I was persistent. People are going to tell you no. That didn't bother me because I knew I wanted to help homeless families. So passion was a propeller forward. Then I had my plan. And then I was persistent. There was a lot of naysayers and people, one pastor who was actually on our board changed the bylaws. I had bylaws developed, and
Yeah,
the law.
when did you do that in the journey? So after the big
Oh,
conference and when did it turn into an organization?
organization. Well, a pastor said to me, "Well, to do all you want to do, you have to have a nonprofit." And I thought to myself, "What's that?" You know. But so I worked with an attorney who developed the bylaws, and he said, "I assume you want this to be broad because the mission statement and everything. The broader it is, the more it leaves you open to do many things." I said, "Yes, absolutely." So he created them, and then this pastor on our board said, "Let me look at them." And he said, "I'll wordsmith them." And he wordsmithed them. He wordsmithed the whole mission right out of it. When I got back the bylaws, it was that we would just assist others, raise money, and assist others. So I came back to the lawyer and he said, "I'll fix the pastor." And he did.
Good.
Things like that. And there were turf issues. So you would think there wouldn't be turf issues in the nonprofit world. You think in the corporate world, but there were agencies who, yeah, just wanted us to raise money for them. But see, because I was passionate and persistent, I was able to go right through that. So shyness didn't enter into this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Which is why what I love, and again, maybe I'm making it too obvious for listeners, but I think the gift of usually when you're connecting with other people, it's not about you, it's about something bigger than you. And your
Yeah.
clarity for that, back to the sandwich for Millie and you and your son doing that. Um, I, I have to ask this though, Karen, a million volunteers? How do you get a million
Overtime.
over? I mean, that's amazing.
Overtime. Yeah. So for each congregation, they engage about 50 volunteers a week. And so all that adds up in over close to 40 years. Many people, volunteers, and some have been volunteers all along. Some have
Yep.
stayed in touch with families. One family, Hope, Lou, and April Coriel, became the godparents of her child, and just all kind of connections are made. So there's a network, but within the network, there's networking, and
Yes.
people figure out ways to help. That's a
Well,
beautiful thing.
it is a beautiful thing. And again, I think for anybody listening, that has heard me say, I really believe when you want to build your network, start by volunteering because when you're doing something you're passionate about, the right people always show up.
That's
And
right.
and sometimes when, I have three children that are they're the friends. Everybody's, looking for a job. You're trying to find your way. And I just say, well, are you volunteering or who are you talking to? Or, we're so fortunate,
Mhm.
but, they forget that. So I love that. Again. How about the book though? Let's talk for the, last few minutes. We could go on for a long time, but let's talk a little bit about your book and how people can support what you're working on, Karen.
Sure. In 2016, I retired, and I had time for another project. So I began writing a book based on what I saw in Family Promise, how lives were changed. And it meant so much to me, and I wanted to share that with others. So I started writing my book, Meant for More, Following Your Heart and Finding Your Purpose. And it's a little bit about me and my story. It's also about the volunteers and our guests, homeless families, and it offers suggestions on how to help and make a difference. And so this has been a wonderful chapter. And I share in the book, more about my life, because people probably thought I was just this successful corporate executive who turned to a nonprofit. But this all started because of the pain I experienced in my childhood when my mother died suddenly and tragically when I was 12. So that really propelled me forward to make a difference. And so that's in the book. And also just how Family Promise has touched the lives of not only guests, but volunteers. A while ago, I spoke at the Knoxville affiliate, and this woman came up to me in tears, and she said, thank you for starting Family Promise. It saved my life. And so I'm used to hearing that from guests who are in the program, but this was a volunteer, Alice, and she was grieving horribly, she said, because she had lost her husband. And she joined the church where they had the funeral because they were so welcoming. And she said it saved her life because she now had a purpose. And she was a regular volunteer. And that made all the difference in the world for her and helped her with the grieving process. So it's gifts for not only the people you're serving, but for the server as well. And I think that's true in any volunteer activity.
Oh, great. Great. I think it's a great way to find community. And I love that story of your volunteer. What's Karen, we'll put the link to your new book in the show notes, and we'll post this out on social media. What's one more tip you might give to people that are, building relationships or trying to find their passion and purpose? What might you say to them?
Well, I would say be aware of the needs in your community, or have in mind something you want to do, and look for people who are like-minded, so whatever it is, go to places where people are like-minded. If you want to start, an art studio and have artists, and, you're going to go to places where there's art and that sort of thing.
Nice, nice. I love that. Well,
Mhm.
I just think it's really amazing what you've done and Family Promise and people
Mhm.
volunteering. So I wish you well on the book launch journey, and we'll have people follow up with where to find you. And thank you so much for being a guest here today.
Thank you, Cathy. It's been a pleasure being here and talking with your audience.
Thanks for listening to the All-Star Networking Show with Cathy Paper. If you're interested in being a guest, please contact Cathy at www.rockpaperstar.com.